7 years of support ended with one dinner that changed everything. Salem on a Sunday felt like a held breath, wet air, porch lights, the drizzle tapping a quiet code on the railing. Inside, plates were warm from the oven. The game murmured from the living room. I put down a lemon pie and tried to make my face behave. Family night. Safe, right? Tessa swept in late, cinnamon gum and expensive shampoo, phone glued to her palm. She kissed Mom and Dad, glanced at me, and smirked. Still married to spreadsheets, Em? She didn't look up. Then she added the line that sliced cleaner than she knew, no ring, no kids. Wild. Mom laughed too quickly, the laugh people use when they want peace instead of truth. Dad grinned without meeting my eyes. And then Mom couldn't help herself, soft voice, careful tone. She said grandkids would be nice someday, that I wasn't getting younger, that my career would wait, but biology wouldn't. The fork in my hand scraped the plate. I tasted lemon and metal. I used to swallow it. I used to make a joke and change the subject. After dessert, I'd quietly pay the Wi-Fi bill when it got shut off again. I'd cover the mortgage gap just this month, then just one more. I'd put gas in my sister's car before her brand deals paid out, and I kept the receipts like a secret diary. Oldest daughters learn to be invisible accountants. Not tonight. I kept my voice flat. Funny, I said. Since my credit card covered your last 3 brand launches and the pediatric copays you posted about for views. I let the word sit. Not loud, just heavy. Tessa blinked. Mom's hand froze around the serving spoon. Dad did that tiny jaw clench he thinks no one notices. I didn't look away. Tessa tried a smile. Relax. You said you'd help. Don't be weird. She flicked her eyes at Mom. Em's just cranky because she's not cuddling any babies. I felt something inside me lock into place. It wasn't rage. It was focus. I thought about the nights I lay awake in my Portland apartment, wondering if I should freeze my eggs, then calculating the cost and choosing their overdue electric bill instead. I thought about holding my friend's newborn last spring and pretending my heart didn't twist, because who gets to dream when the math won't balance? Would you have smiled and paid again? I placed the fork down, slow and neat. I said I'd help, I answered, voice steady. I didn't say you could forget who helped. Silence did what shouting never could. The TV showed a roaring crowd with the sound off. The faucet dripped once, a hard metronome. I felt my heartbeat settle into something precise. Bedrock. Mom tried to reset the ritual plates, napkins, the choreography of denial. Dad cleared his throat, the universal treaty. Tessa rolled her eyes so far back, she almost found humility. You're being dramatic, she said. Family supports family. You don't want me to fail. And kids are a blessing, Em. You'll understand when you have your own. There it was. The sermon dressed as concern. A life audit from someone whose car insurance still auto-drafted from my account. I looked at the nails I'd paid for, the jacket that cost half a car payment, the phone case with my name in her Apple Pay history. I looked at my mother's hands, dry from a lifetime of gloves and rinses, at my father's shoulders, rounded by almost catching up. I looked at me. 34. Portland commute. Dashboards by day. Quiet wire transfers by night. A calendar full of deadlines and an empty space where possibility used to live. I'm not your subscription, I said. I didn't raise my voice. The word landed like a switch clicking off. It landed with the weight of 7 years. Mortgage patches, medical copays, the new water heater after winter killed the old, tire replacements, phone bills, emergency, vet visits, brand launch costs, camera upgrades, temporary. Streaming services on my card that never got canceled. I could map my love in transactions. I could graph my exhaustion. Tessa softened her tone, sugar hiding the splinter. Come on, Em. Don't make this weird. You know things are tight. And Mom wants grandkids. We're all just worried about you, that's all. Worried about me. The irony hummed like a fluorescent bulb. Dad muttered about respect at the table. Mom said we should eat while it's hot. I nodded and passed the potatoes. I ate quietly. I didn't explain. The explaining days were over. When I stood to leave, Mom hugged me longer than usual, as if she could smooth the moment flat with her hands. Dad patted my shoulder like a compromise. Tessa avoided my eyes and said I should check my attitude, then posted a story about family vibes with a clinking glasses emoji. Outside, the rain smelled like clean metal. My car door thudded shut. Warm air fogged the windshield and cleared, revealing a face I recognized and hadn't met in years. Tired, yes, but sharp. Between Salem and Portland, the road hissed under the tires, and the house lights fell away behind me. A single thought clicked into place like a lock. The first thing I'd do when I got home wasn't sleep. It was count. The road home sounded like rain pulled through teeth. Wipers kept time. My mind didn't. Salem fell behind in wet pearls of light, and Portland drew closer like a decision I'd already made. I didn't turn on music. I counted miles, then bills. Mortgage patches. Phone plans. Copays. Emergency tires. Camera upgrades. Quiet transfers, just until the brand pays out. The list unspoled like receipt paper in my head, inches and years. Would you keep paying if every joke at dinner was about your empty ring? My apartment greeted me with the hum of the fridge and the soft click of the heater. I kicked off my shoes, set my keys down, and opened the laptop. The blue glow hit the wall like sunrise pretending. I pulled up the bank, then the spreadsheets that knew me better than anyone. New sheet. New rule. Columns. Date, reason, who, amount. I breathed, steady, and started typing. Gas money March. Utilities June. Temporary phone plan add-on that lasted 19 months. 2 missed mortgage payments patched. Dentist follow-ups. Mom's antibiotics. Water heater. Streaming services I never watched but paid for anyway. Tessa's starter equipment. Another camera when the first one wasn't crisp enough. A ring light shaped like a halo. The irony made me smile without humor. I scrolled my email like an archaeologist dusting off artifacts. Invoices I'd covered until Friday. Transfers labeled bridge. Bank alerts I'd swiped away between meetings. My fingers shook once and then steadied. I added line after line, each one a thread pulled from a sweater I thought would never unravel. The total climbed. 23,000. 41. 56. I paused, rubbed the heel of my palm against my chest, and kept going. The number settled, ugly and precise. $69,482. 17. Close enough to a word I didn't like, lifetime. I stared at the total until it blurred. Then I did what numbers ask for, action. I opened the scheduled transfers. There they were, neat as marching ants, every Friday, every first of the month, every just this once turned ritual. I clicked the first one. Are you sure you want to cancel? The box asked, soft and accusatory. Yes. The word felt better spoken than clicked, so I said it out loud. Second transfer. Are you sure? Yes. Third. Fourth. Fifth. Each one a tiny door closing with an almost inaudible click. I removed an authorized user from my card and got the little confetti animation banks throw when they think they've helped you. I laughed, short and bright. I changed passwords. I flipped two-factor on accounts I'd been too tired to lock down. The screen reflected a woman with red eyes and a calm mouth. She looked like she'd finally put the fire out in one room and was walking toward the next. I pulled up subscriptions. The list was longer than shame. A gaming pass I never used. A design app tied to Tessa's laptop. A cloud storage plan with my name and her files. Are you sure? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. I sent myself a copy of the spreadsheet. Another to a private folder, just in case. I added a note at the bottom. Approximate total over 7 years is almost equal to $70,000. The zeros didn't scare me. The pattern did. The way love, when unmanaged, had turned into logistics. The way my future, had been traded in increments for someone else's now. I made tea and stood by the window while water hissed and stilled. Across the street, a neighbor's porch light clicked off. Somewhere a train horn folded into the weather. I thought about mothering, how I'd been doing a version of it without the child, without the choice, without the joy. I thought about those quiet nights when I'd Googled egg freezing costs, then paid a bill instead. Who was I saving, really? Back at the desk, I opened one last tab and drafted a note I wouldn't send tonight. Payments paused. We'll discuss boundaries next week. I deleted it. No warnings. No explanations. Boundaries don't ask permission. I set calendar alerts for myself. Review accounts Friday, pull statements monthly, keep receipts. I printed the sheet and slid it into a manila folder, then wrote a word on the tab I never thought I'd use with family: evidence. Midnight came and went. My phone lay face down, quiet as a held breath. The silence felt earned. I washed my cup, turned off the lights, and sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the building settle. "Are you sure?" echoed once, as if the apartment wanted in on the interrogation. "Yes," I whispered to the dark. Somewhere between yes and sleep, a thought leaned in close. Shutting off the money was the easy part. The hard part would start when the gap made noise. By morning, it would. Monday started buzzing before the kettle did. 7:12 a.m. First call, Tessa. I let it slide to voicemail. Then Mom. Then Dad. The screen lit like a slot machine you don't want to win. I flipped the phone face down and poured hot water over a tea bag, counting my breaths until the steam stopped pretending it was fog. When I finally checked, the messages stacked like threats disguised as concern. Tessa's text: Wi-Fi got cut. Content deadline today. You know what to do. Mom's voicemail: careful voice, softer than a bruise. She said the word grandkids twice, as if it were currency. Dad's voicemail: clipped, practical. This is not how family acts. I opened notes and put the date at the top. Then I started saving. Screenshots, exported threads, voicemails backed up to a private drive. I labeled each file with names and times. Evidence, tab 2. I didn't add commentary. Numbers don't need adjectives. Work tried to claim me. Dashboard deadlines. A Slack ping. I answered with my usual competence and a quieter mind than I expected. In between tasks, the phone kept buzzing. Group chat this time, family. Tessa posted a screenshot of her unpaid internet bill with a caption about fake supporters and a crying laughing emoji. Mom sent a prayer hands gif. Dad told us all to be reasonable. Would you fold and send money just to stop the noise? At lunch, I walked 2 blocks in light rain, let the air cool the heat under my skin, and came back to find 3 missed calls and a new angle. Mom texted that Aunt Marlene said I seemed angry lately, and wouldn't it help to talk face-to-face? She wrote face-to-face, like a cure. I typed, busy at work. Please text. Then I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and added an exception for my boss. The quiet that followed felt like stepping into a library where the rules finally protect you. Tessa found another route. She blasted a story to her followers about unsupportive family vibes, then added a question box for baby name ideas. I watched it for 5 seconds and hit save. Evidence, tab 3, social posts. It felt petty and necessary all at once. By Wednesday, the gap started making noise in the places money used to muffle. Power company email for my parents' house, past due notice. That one wasn't mine anymore. I forwarded it to myself anyway, then filed it. I wasn't fixing it. I was keeping score. A weird ping hit my credit app, new activity detected. It named a lender I didn't recognize and a city I knew too well. Salem. My stomach went tight and then loose. I took a screenshot and tucked it into the folder. I told myself it was a glitch. The truth hummed under that lie like a live wire under floorboards. Thursday night, Mom left a long voicemail that started with "We love you" and ended with "You're wasting your best years." She mentioned kids again, gently, like a doctor offering a treatment plan. She said she worried I'd regret prioritizing work over life, and I heard the old ache ripple under her words. Her own life paused too often for everyone else's needs. I saved it. I didn't argue with the recording. Dad's message came late, voice firmed up by something stronger than coffee. He said I was making a point at the expense of the family, that he'd expected better, that I'd forgotten where I came from. He used the word "oh." It landed like a word you only hear from creditors. Then he added the line that told me where this was headed. Be here Sunday at 5. We need to settle this. Friday, Tessa texted a list. Groceries, gas, pet meds. She attached a total and a thumbs up, as if I were payroll. When I didn't answer in 5 minutes, 3 dots pulsed, vanished, returned, then a new message arrived. Sharper. You're so cold. Wait till you want something, like a baby shower nobody shows up to. I put the phone down and looked out my window at a man walking his dog in a yellow raincoat. The dog shook itself and sprayed diamonds. Life continued without my constant saving. The thought felt radical. I answered Tessa with one line. I can meet Sunday. No reason, no apology, no budget. I spent Saturday morning doing what love had kept me too busy to do. Simple, boring protection. I ordered a credit freeze with each bureau, changed 2 more passwords, and set up alerts that sent me duplicates I could not ignore. I mirrored the evidence folder to a second drive and labeled the binder's spine with a date and a word that used to feel dramatic and now felt correct: boundaries. By afternoon, the group chat had shifted from guilt to logistics. Mom said she'd make roast chicken. Dad said 5 o'clock sharp. Tessa sent an eye-roll emoji and wrote, "Bring your little spreadsheets. Let's see if you can justify abandoning your family." I printed the ledger anyway. I added tabs for mortgage patches, medical, utilities, car, gear, subscriptions. I slid a fresh notepad into the pocket and clicked a pen like a metronome. The apartment hummed. Rain traced the window and stayed on the outside where it belonged. Saturday night, Mom sent one more text, soft, near whisper, "Come early if you can. I want to talk alone first." I stared at it until the screen dimmed and locked. How do you say no to the person who taught you please? I didn't answer. The boundary held. I set a reminder for Sunday, Salem, 5 p.m. Bring proof. I put the binder in my bag, then paused and added the credit alert printout at the very back, not sure why it felt important to have it near me. At 9:13 p.m., Dad sent the final word of the week. No greeting. No please. Just a simple demand that landed like a gavel. Be here Sunday. No excuses. The front door stuck like it remembered every argument. I pushed through the swell of wood and the smell of roast chicken, thyme, and TV static. 5 o'clock sharp. Rain ticking on the gutters like a nervous habit. Mom wiped her hands on a towel and tried a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Dad sat at the head of the table as if this were a meeting with minutes. Tessa lounged sideways in a chair, phone face down, nails new and loud. No small talk. No, how was the drive? Places were set like evidence markers. I put my bag on the floor beside my seat and kept my hands flat on the table, palms cool against the grain. Dad opened first. His tone carried the weight of old rules. He said the last week had been disruptive. He said family depends on each other and that I had made a point at everyone else's expense. He used the word duty the way people use please when they don't mean it. Mom followed with a soft counterpoint. She talked about worry. About time passing. About grandkids you can't meet if your daughter never makes room for life. Her voice broke where it never used to. She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't fold either. Tessa went last and loudest. She said her work was about to pop and I'd chosen the exact week to sabotage her. She said brands were watching and my money drought looked bad on her analytics. Then she leaned back and smiled with all teeth. Maybe if you had a baby to think about, she said, you'd learn what responsibility feels like. The line didn't sting. It clarified. I pictured the baby name ideas box on her story, the nursery mood board saved on a phone I'd helped finance, the pediatric copays I'd covered when a toddler cameo boosted her views. Motherhood used as content. My wallet used as cradle. I kept my voice even. The transfers are canceled, I said. They're not coming back. The room contracted, then flexed. Dad's jaw worked. Mom's breath snagged. Tessa laughed once, hard. Cute. Spreadsheet justice. Hook 1. Truth doesn't echo in a padded room. It scrapes. Dad straightened in his chair. He said I had forgotten where I came from. He said he'd never ask if things weren't tight. He said the house needed stability, that winter bled the budget, that sometimes you bridge with what you have. The word bridge rang against something in my head, last week's credit alert, then went still. I asked him what bridge meant. He rolled his eyes toward the ceiling, hunting patience. He said money moved, that paperwork got messy, that grown-ups made decisions. He looked at me like I should decode the implication and nod, the way I always had. Mom touched his arm, a small plea. She told me I'd been so generous, and couldn't I be generous a little longer? She said she worried I'd regret letting work swallow my best years. She said kids won't wait. Her eyes shimmered with a history she never narrates. I thought about the night I Googled egg freezing and paid their electric bill instead. I thought about counting transfers while my tea cooled, about the calm that came with each yes to a cancel button. Calm isn't cold, it's clean. Tessa tipped her head and studied me like a camera lens. You love control, she said. Numbers make you feel safe. Babies don't care about budgets. Maybe that's why you're scared. The bait twitched. I let it sink to the bottom and die there. I'm not scared, I said. I'm done. Hook 2. Sometimes the bravest word in a house full of prayers is no. Dad pushed his chair back an inch, complaining. He told me this wasn't a negotiation. He said I would resume the usual amounts, mortgage patch, phones, utilities, and he named each like items on a menu we'd all agreed on. He said Sunday dinners shouldn't include public shaming with ledgers and accusations. I swallowed a dry laugh. The ledger was still zipped in my bag. He was arguing with a ghost of me, the one who used to apologize while paying the bill. Mom reached for the gravy boat and set it down like a peace treaty. Let's eat. We can talk while we eat, she said, voice thin. Your sister's trying, sweetheart. She'll have a family soon. You'll see. We'll all be happier when babies are running around. Tessa's smile flickered like a ring light. Soon, she echoed, eyes on me. With or without your help. There it was, bare and bright, the assumption that my wallet was a faucet and motherhood a prop. My hands warmed against the tabletop. The clock in the kitchen clicked, loud as a metronome. Would you keep paying for a future you aren't allowed to have? I turned my left hand over and studied the lines in my palm. They looked like rivers on an old map, routes that once made sense. Then I looked up and found 3 faces waiting for the familiar me to come back with compromise. I'm going to say this once, I said, steady. I will not fund this house, these bills, or Tessa's work anymore. Not this week. Not next month. Not quietly. It stops. Tessa scoffed, but her fingers tightened around the phone. Dad opened his mouth, then closed it. Mom's eyes filled and held. For a long beat, no one breathed. Hook 3. The air changes first. People catch up later. Dad tried a new angle, the one meant to end things. He said he'd handled a few things already, spoken to people, and that the family was protected. He told me not to worry about technicalities. He used that word, technicalities, the way people say details when they mean signatures. A small, cold thread slid under my ribs. Technicalities. People. Protected. The credit alert flared again in my memory, as insistent as a smoke alarm in another room. I didn't chase it yet. I set it on a mental shelf and labeled it, check. Tessa slapped her palm lightly against the table, and influencers clapped for attention. Enough, she said. Either you're in or you're out. If you're out, own it. Don't show up here pretending. I didn't flinch. I'm here to make everything clear, I said. Dad leaned forward. Without drama. Without denial, I answered. Silence spread. The roast cooled. The TV murmured to itself in a language none of us were listening to. I reached down and unzipped my bag. The sound was small and absolute. I lifted the binder and set it on the table between the salt and the prayer Mom hadn't offered yet. White spine. Fresh tabs. A neat, unforgiving weight. Tessa laughed, relief and contempt mixing. There she is, she said. Spreadsheet, Mommy. I opened to the first tab. My finger rested on the top sheet, the print crisp and patient. I looked at each of them in turn and let the next sentence arrive like a verdict. Okay, I said. Let's count. Paper doesn't raise its voice. It never has to. I opened the binder. Tabs flashed like small, polite warnings. Mortgage. Medical. Utilities. Car. Gear. Phones. Subscriptions. Bridges. I laid the first sheet between the salt and the gravy boat. Ink, dates, amounts, quiet as a verdict. 14 mortgage patches, I said. Total, 18,900. I didn't add the cents. I let the number sit. Mom's breath snagged. Dad stared at the page as if decimals were insults. Tessa smirked without commitment, The way people do when they're waiting for an angle. Next tab. Medical. Copays, prescriptions, follow-ups. A pediatric line glowed on row 12. 6,340. I slid a receipt forward. You posted this visit for views, I added. I paid for it because a fever isn't content. Tessa blinked, then tried the influencer shrug. You offered. I turned a page. Printed screenshots, text stacked like a weather map. Rent due today. Just until Friday. Card declined, can you? Dates marched. Requests repeated. The phrase, just this once, appeared 13 times. I didn't look up. I responded yes 9 of those times. The other 4 were transfers without texting first. Utilities. 7,280. Phone plans and add-ons I never used. 4,300. I tapped a line. Authorized user removed. Her fingers twitched toward her pocket. The muscle memory of entitlement is fast. Gear and growth. Cameras, lenses, ring lights, tripods, a backdrop that made the dining room look like a nursery in soft beige. 9,950. I kept my tone flat. Return on investment remains aspirational. Dad finally spoke. This is a family table, not a courtroom. This is a family ledger, I said. A record of what love looked like when it got itemized. Repairs. 8,200. Water heater in winter, roof patch after the storm peeled shingles like scabs. Car and gas. 5,600. Subscriptions under my name, design apps, editing suites, cloud storage full of files I didn't make. 2,400. I canceled, line by line. Confetti from the bank app had never felt more sarcastic. Mom's hands trembled against her napkin. We didn't realize it was that much. That's the thing about autopay, I said. It keeps the peace quiet. I turned to the tab labeled Bridges. The word had a new gravity. 6,500 in unclassified, just until transfers, I said. Every one of them a gap I closed so no one had to feel it. Tessa rolled her eyes. So you kept receipts. Do you want a medal? I want accuracy, I said, and slid the summary page across the wood. Approximate total over 7 years. $69,482. I let the digits cool the room. That's a down payment. That's a graduate degree. That's egg freezing plus rent for a year. Hook. Money is a mirror. Most people don't like their reflection. Dad leaned back, trying for dignity. No one forced you, he said. You made choices. We all make choices. I made choices with consequences, I answered. So did you. I flipped to a pocket sleeve and drew out printed voicemails transcribed to text. Mom's gentle pleading. Dad's firm directives. Tessa's shopping lists labeled urgent. I tapped timestamps. Patterns aren't opinions, I said. They're math. Mom whispered that she was sorry. The words sounded soft and small and 30 years late. Tessa went for the last defense, speed. Fine, she said. We're grateful. Happy? Can we eat now? Would you call this support or dependence with nicer packaging? I closed the binder halfway. The room felt hollow in a new way, like a staged house after the furniture leaves. I could stop here and let the silence do its work. I could pack the proof and walk out with nothing left but my name. But the credit ping from Wednesday sat in my bag like a throb you can't ignore. I reached into the back pocket and pulled a thin, separate envelope. White. Unlabeled. I set it on the table beside the summary, felt the temperature of the air change, and met my father's eyes. One more page, I said, and my voice lost even the softness it had left. I didn't plan to show this tonight. The envelope felt colder than paper should. I set it beside the binder, white against wood, and watched 3 faces try to read fate from stationery. This came after a credit alert Wednesday, I said. A new account opened in my name. Hook. Some crimes don't break windows. They borrow your face. I slid out the first page. Clean font. Polite bullets. A revolving line for home improvements, approved last month. Service address. This house. Primary contact. My mother's email. Verification call. My father's cell. Digital signature. Emma Linton. I don't sign with loopies. Tessa went for speed. She called it a misunderstanding. She said brands finance things all the time. She said paperwork is flexible. I let the words pass like steam. Dad's denial arrived fully built. He said he would never. He said I was accusing my own family. He leaned on outrage the way people lean on a broken railing, hard, hoping it holds. I turned the page. Application metadata. Timestamps. The IP address block. The provider tied to the street. The installer's work order for upstairs windows and a furnace check. Balance. $12,400, I said. First payment due Wednesday. In my name. Mom's hand went to her mouth. Not guilt. Not yet. Just fear. She whispered that winter was rough, the furnace was dying, and the promo rate was too good to pass up. She said they planned to tell me. Later. Would you call this love or theft with better intentions? I kept my voice level. Intentions don't make my credit score heal faster. I reached for my phone and tapped a file I'd labeled before I left Portland. The speaker laid down a dry click, then a woman's professional brightness. She read a disclaimer about recorded lines. A man's voice followed, steady, familiar, lowered a notch as if depth could add authority. He provided my name. He confirmed the address. He approved the terms. He spelled Emma carefully, like he'd practiced. I paused the clip at the breath before the rep asked for the last 4 digits. The room vibrated without sound. Dad stared at the table, the stance of a man arguing with gravity. He said phones get spoofed. He said recordings can be faked. He said a lot of things that weren't his voice in my speaker. I didn't blink. 2 more files, I said, and opened the verification email with the e-sign audit trail. It showed a cursor path, a time on a Sunday afternoon, and a location bubble parked over this neighborhood. My stomach felt like ice and iron at once. Mom said they were going to make the payments. She said I wouldn't have even noticed. She said it was temporary, a bridge. The word hit the table like a hammer. This crossed a boundary, I answered. It crossed the law. I took out a business card and set it next to the envelope. White, simple, a name printed calm as a solution. Julia Reyes, attorney at law. I didn't dress it up. I spoke with her Friday, I said. She filed an identity theft affidavit and notified the lender's fraud unit. Credit is frozen. Alerts are up. She's preparing certified letters and, if needed, subpoenas for phone records and IP logs. Tessa laughed too high. She called me dramatic. She said no judge locks up a dad for helping his family. She said the internet would shred me for this. The internet doesn't underwrite loans, I said. Banks do. Mom's eyes went glassy. We're family, Emma. My name is not a family coupon, I answered, and felt something old unhook from my chest. Dad finally met my eyes. Beneath the indignation, I saw the calculation. What could be salvaged? Who could be blamed? How loudly this might echo. He asked what I wanted. He asked it the way people ask for a bill they hope someone else will pick up. I closed the audio file. The room exhaled and didn't relax. What I want is simple, I said. My name off everything it never belonged on. My credit cleaned. My consent restored. He said we could work something out. He said he knew people. He said it didn't have to get official. It's already official, I said, and tapped the card once with my finger. Julia's handling it. Hook, when the truth walks in wearing a lawyer's name, denial loses its shoes. I gathered the pages into a neat stack and slid them back into the envelope. The paper didn't shake. My hands didn't either. The only sound was the clock in the kitchen, marking off seconds like witness statements. I stood. Not to leave. To choose the next line. The furnace can be fixed without my identity, I said. So can the rest of this. 3 faces. 3 different storms. 1 path forward. I let the silence stretch to the breaking point, then set the last piece on the table, a typed summary from Julia, clipped and clear. It outlined exactly what comes next if compliance doesn't happen fast. I didn't read it aloud. I wanted the weight to sit. Tomorrow, I said quietly, you'll get the terms in writing. Some doors don't slam. They close like a judge's file. I kept standing, the envelope and Julia's card between us like a new border. My mother reached for the napkins and didn't know what to do with her hands. My father squared his shoulders as if posture could renegotiate facts. Tessa stared at her black screen, waiting for a script that wouldn't arrive. I'm giving you 30 days, I said. My voice didn't waver. Not to argue. To act. Hook. Deadlines turn love into proof. I laid out the terms, plain as road signs. First, remove my name from every account, card, and service you've attached it to. No authorized user, no auto drafts, no hidden backups. Written confirmation to Julia by day 15. Second, the forged line closed, refinanced, or assumed under your names only. Fraud unit already notified, you'll cooperate or she escalates. Third, no new credit in my name, ever. I've frozen my reports, filed the affidavit, and set alerts. Fourth, any bill appearing with my name after tonight gets forwarded to counsel. I won't reply to urgent texts. I reply to documentation. Tessa laughed once. It sounded like a lighter trying to catch. You're threatening us. I'm protecting me, I said. That's overdue. Mom blinked fast, the way people do when a rune gets too sharp. She whispered about grandkids again, soft, pleading like babies could neutralize contracts. I kept it gentle but firm. Children need stability, I said. Stability starts with honesty. Boundaries aren't anti-family. Dad leaned forward, finding the old register, authority, then reason. He asked what happens if paperwork takes longer. He asked for understanding. He rolled the word like a coin. Day 30 isn't flexible, I answered. You can finish early. Early is good. I slid a printed sheet across the table, dates, steps, phone numbers, the lender's fraud contact, and Julia's office address in bold. Not a threat. A map. The ink looked steadier than their faces. Would you call this cruel, I asked, or finally fair? Silence absorbed it. The clock kept time like a witness. Rain ticked the gutter, patient as interest. Tessa tried one last hook. You'll be alone with your spreadsheets, she said. No baby showers. No family holidays. I surprised us both by smiling. Small. Real. Then I'll spend the holidays with people who don't need my credit score to love me. Hook. Freedom sounds like the first clean breath after a long hallway. Dad's jaw shifted. He asked if we could keep this private. The calculation showed public risk, small town, Salem whispers. I nodded once. Privacy is earned by compliance. I tapped the sheet. You do this, it stays family. You don't, it becomes case law. Mom's voice dropped to a tremor. Emma, we made mistakes. Don't burn the house down. I'm removing my name from the fire, I said. The house decides its own flames. I stood to leave. No dramatics. Just the weight lifting in honest inches. I put the binder in my bag and left the envelope on the table. The edges were square, my boundaries matched them. At the door, Mom touched my sleeve. Will you at least stay for dessert? Her eyes were glass over water. Not tonight, I said, soft. I want you to remember the taste of this moment. Dad called after me my name, then be reasonable, then nothing. Tessa muttered something about blocking me. The house smelled like time and static. I opened the door and the rain met me like an ally. Outside, the evening felt wider. I breathed and didn't apologize for it. The porch light hummed. The yard glistened. My shoes found the path without looking down. In the car, I texted 2 words to Julia. 30 days. She answered in under a minute. Clock starts tomorrow. Certified letters ready. I set my phone face down and listened to the engine settle. Relief didn't rush me, it unfolded. Guilt tried the handle, found it locked, and wandered off. On the drive back, the wipers kept time with a new rhythm, measured, not desperate. I pictured the sheet on their table. I pictured the calendar squares filling with calls and confirmations. I pictured my name leaving their bills like a tide going out. Tomorrow would bring letters, forms, and a fraud investigator who didn't care about family lore. Tomorrow would sound like stamps and scanners and official voices saying case number. Tonight was just quiet. The good kind. I parked, carried the binder upstairs, and set it on my desk like a keystone. The apartment breathed with me. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked once and stopped. I made tea. I didn't count anything. Day 0 felt like ownership. By morning, ink would start moving. Some victories don't cheer. They erase. 2 weeks later, a flat white envelope waited on my doormat like a quiet verdict. The lender's logo sat in the corner, harmless as a sticker. I locked the door, set water to boil, and opened it at the counter while the kettle whispered. Final determination, consumer not liable. 6 words, sterile as a hospital light, warm as a hand on my back. The forged line was closed. Balance reassigned to originators pending internal review. Negative marks removed from my file. A case number breathed on the page like a new spine. My phone buzzed exactly then, Julia. Her voice carried that crisp steadiness I'd borrowed all month. She walked me through the timeline like a trail map. Fraud unit accepted the affidavit. The voice sprint analysis flagged inconsistencies on the verification call. IP logs matched the Salem address. Metadata sealed it. She'd already sent certified notices to the bureaus, and my freeze stayed in place. You're clear, she said. Keep everything for your records. And keep your guard up. Hook. Freedom is a quiet shock that takes an extra breath to believe. I sat at the table with the kettle still humming, letting the nervous energy drain out of my shoulders. The apartment felt taller by an inch. I made tea and read through each page twice. The words didn't change. The feeling did. A warmth I couldn't name moved in under my ribs. Relief, maybe. Dignity, definitely. Then the confirmations started stacking like dominoes, tipping the right way. Day 10. Equifax removed the inquiry and the account. The subject line used the word resolved, the exact opposite of how dinner had felt. Day 11. TransUnion followed, clinical and clean. Day 12. Experience update landed with a digital chime. Score stabilized. The graph smoothed like water after rain. Day 13. The lender sent a final closure notice and a careful apology written by legal. I didn't frame it. I filed it. Tessa's name never appeared on any of it, but the silence around her did. No emergency lists. No urgent totals. No baby name polls for engagement. My phone looked like an object again, not a slot machine for guilt. Would you forgive yet? Or would you let the scar teach first? I moved through the boring protections like a ritual. New card numbers. Fresh passwords. 2-factor on the stragglers. I added a small, petty joy, unsubscribed from every newsletter I'd signed up for because someone needed a code. The inbox breathed. Work noticed only in the best way. My focus came back with edges. I finished a dashboard and caught myself smiling at a clean line of logic. Control didn't feel like armor anymore. It felt like oxygen. Julia texted a neat bullet list at noon. 1. All 3 bureaus confirmed removal. 2. Fraud unit closed the ticket. 3. Keep the freeze 90 days. 4. Keep receipts 2 years. She added one human line under the rules. You did this right. I stared at it longer than a compliment usually deserves. In the quiet, I let something simple happen. I celebrated alone without calling it lonely. I bought a single cupcake from the shop on the corner, lit one candle, and didn't make a wish. Wishes felt like IOUs to the universe. Boundaries felt like facts. I took a slow bite and watched the flame burn down to a clean black wick. The apartment's small noises filled back in, the heater clicking off, a neighbor's keys through drywall, a faint train horn folding into distance. I stood by the window and looked at the gray Portland sky. It didn't brighten for me. It didn't have to. I pulled my binder from the shelf and added a new tab: results. I slid the letters into clear sleeves and wrote the date in swift, even strokes. The spine read evidence on one side and boundaries on the other. Both were mine. I thought about the word motherhood and how it had been used like a measuring stick and a gavel. I thought about how I'd mothered a house without a child, mothered a sister's brand without a contract, mothered a budget that wasn't mine. Then I asked a different question: what would it look like to mother my own life first? The kettle had gone silent. My tea tasted like quiet metal and lemon. I let the steam fog the glass and fade. A pair of joggers passed below my window in matching rain jackets, moving at exactly the same pace. Good for them, I thought, and meant it. That night I slept without the "are you sure?" voice riding the edge of my thoughts. No lists formed at 2 a.m. No phantom bills crawled under the door. My head touched the pillow and trusted. By morning, another envelope waited, a credit bureau's formal letter, the kind that folds like origami. It listed deletion codes and a note about my right to place a statement on file. I didn't need a statement. The record itself was clean. Midday brought the first ping from Salem since the Friday I'd set the clock. Not a call. A text from Dad, spare as a receipt, handled. No apology. No detail. Just proof that pressure had moved the needle where love hadn't. I didn't reply. Julia didn't need my commentary. She had their confirmation. Mom's name filled the screen later, a softer tone before I even opened it. She wrote that she'd been praying for peace and was glad the paperwork worked out. Then she added a second message, the real point hiding inside good manners. Can you come Sunday? Roast chicken. 5. I stared at the words come Sunday and felt the small undertow of history tug my ankles. The last time I'd driven south for dinner, truth had set the table. Now there was space where chaos used to be. Was it safe to sit there again? I set the phone down, walked a slow lap around the room, and let the apartment answer. It didn't argue. It didn't plead. It just stayed mine. I picked up the phone and typed a single line. I can come for dinner. Hook. Sometimes peace is a chair pulled out for you, sometimes it's a test. I didn't ask what we were celebrating. I didn't ask who else would be there. I packed nothing but my keys and the version of myself that didn't explain things twice. What I didn't know, not yet, was how different the house would look. For sale signs don't wave. They stare. I saw it before I saw the porch, white post, red panel, a phone number printed like a dare. The lawn looked smaller with a price tag on it. The rain had rinsed the edges clean. My parents' house, the one that ate my 20s and nicked my 30s, stood there dressed for strangers. Mom had texted 5, but the door was cracked at 4:58. I pushed it open and the echo met me first. Frames were gone. Beige rectangles shadowed the walls where our lives used to hang. The living room smelled like fresh paint, lemon cleaner, and something thinner, absence. A card from the agent sat on the entry table under a bowl of keys that looked like props. Hook. Homes don't empty themselves. They ask what you're taking with you. Mom appeared from the kitchen with paper plates and a brave smile. Last dinner, she said, as if naming it could keep it from breaking. Dad was at the table with a stack of seller disclosures and a pen. He clicked like a nervous metronome. Tessa leaned against the counter, hair perfect, eyes red. The ring light was gone. The circular shadow stayed on the wall like a pale moon. We ate roast chicken on paper plates because the dishes were boxed. The clink of plastic forks was the soundtrack to our new honesty. Conversation tried to be small. Weather. The agent's optimism. The market. No one mentioned forgiveness. It wasn't on the menu. I looked around while we chewed. The hallways still had faint pencil ticks where Mom measured our heights. Someone had painted over them, but the ridges showed through, the past refusing to go fully flat. Mom's hands shook when she poured iced tea. Dad's signature dragged a little on the bottom of a disclosure that said recent window service and furnace repair, paid. The air got tighter. Would you pretend not to see the line where Eli used to live? Tessa broke first. She said moving felt like failure, that the algorithm punished transitions, that a smaller rental would tank her brand. She said the agent's photos made the house look cold. She waited, the way you wait after you've aimed a soft bullet. I kept my voice even. I can help you pack on Saturday. I can drive a load. I won't fund deposits or gear. Her jaw hardened. You're still punishing me. I'm protecting me, I said, and the words didn't need volume anymore. They lived here now. Mom reached for my hand. We're trying, sweetheart. She glanced at Dad's paperwork and then at the empty spaces where family photos used to sit. It hurts, she whispered. I don't know how to be in this house without this house. I thought about motherhood, about how she'd wanted it for me like a cure. I thought about the pediatric copays I'd covered and the nights I'd chosen their bills over my biology. Hurt isn't a bill I can pay, I said softly. Not anymore. Dad cleared his throat like a man assembling a new version of himself. We disclosed everything, he said, tapping the forms. We're doing it right. No more technicalities. He couldn't look at me when he said it. That was new. I nodded once. Good. The word was short and whole. Keep doing it right. Hook. Sometimes the apology is in the paperwork, not the mouth. We walked the rooms after dinner, the way buyers would. The guest room was a cube of dust and quiet. Tessa's old room had a rectangle of unfaded paint where her headboard had been an accidental shrine to a younger certainty. The office was just carpet and an outlet strip. The nursery mood board she'd taped up months ago had left ghosts of tape in a neat grid. She touched the wall and pulled her hand back like it had stung her. In my old room, the closet door stuck where it always stuck. I tugged it open and found the jar of screws Dad had never used, a coil of twine, and a brittle ribbon from a science fair I'd won when being smart was proud, not problem. I took the ribbon and nothing else. Trophies feel heavy in the wrong decade. Back in the kitchen, Mom slid a small envelope across the table. "From us," she said, eyes fixed on the laminate. "It's not money." Inside was my spare house key, the one that lived under the planter. She'd labeled it Emma in careful blue ink. The label was the apology she could manage. "Thank you," I said, and put it on the counter instead of my pocket. "Boundaries don't ride home on your keychain." Tessa tried one more reach. She asked if I'd at least front the moving truck because her card limit was in flux. Her smile was all edges and innocence. I kept my tone warm enough not to bruise, firm enough to hold. "I'll book the truck," I said, "and you'll reimburse before pickup." "No reimbursements, no truck." She scoffed, but she nodded. "Even performance has to obey physics." Mom touched my sleeve. "You'll still come Sundays?" The question was small and huge at once. "Maybe not every week," she added quickly. "Just sometimes. When there are grandkids someday, you'll—" I cut gently, the way you cut a thread you can't untangle. "We'll talk about kids when and if I want to," I said. Not as a bargaining chip. Not as a deadline. Not at dinner. She winced at the word bargaining, then nodded. Something in her face settled, like an exhausted muscle letting go. Dad stacked the disclosures, lined the edges, and finally met my eyes. "I'll send Julia what she asked for," he said. All of it. No pride. No posture. Just the sentence I'd been waiting to hear from someone in this house my whole life. "I'll do the work." We didn't toast. We washed the plastic knives and threw them away. I wiped the counter because muscle memory is a loyal dog, then caught myself and set the sponge down. New rules. I clean my kitchen, not every kitchen I find myself in. By the door, I looked back once because humans always do. The room looked larger without our noise in it. The lemon cleaner smell had faded. The paint caught the last gray light and tried to look warm. It didn't succeed. It didn't have to. "What do you owe a place that cost you years?" The answer came quiet and clear. Gratitude for what it taught, nothing for what it took. On the porch, Mom hugged me with both arms and then with her fingertips, like she was learning a new choreography. Dad said, "Drive safe," and it didn't hide a demand. Tessa muttered that she'd text me a list and stopped herself halfway through the word list. Progress, I thought. Messy but real. I set the Emma key on the entry table, just above the agent's card, and pressed it flat with my palm. Keys open doors. Sometimes they close chapters. Rain pattered on the sign out front. The neighborhood smelled like wet cedar and release. I walked to my car without looking back a second time. On the drive north, the road felt familiar and new in the same breath. My hands were steady on the wheel. The radio stayed off. I didn't practice speeches. I didn't budget hypotheticals. I thought about a class I wanted to take, a trip I could actually plan, a future that didn't require permission slips from anyone but me. Hook. Freedom isn't loud, it's the hiss of tires on wet pavement when you finally point them where you want. Portland's lights rose up like quiet promises. I parked, climbed the stairs, and set the ribbon in a drawer with the letters from the lender, the only trophies that still meant something. The apartment exhaled around me. Tomorrow, I'd enroll. Tomorrow, I'd set a new calendar. Tomorrow, I'd start building something that didn't require me to shrink. Tonight, I let the silence be my yes. Some mornings don't announce a new life. They start with dishes in the sink. A week after the for sale sign went up, my apartment felt like a room I finally owned in my bones. The binder lived on the top shelf, evidence on one spine, boundaries on the other, results tucked between, like a book that refused to be fiction. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and clicked a tab I'd bookmarked months ago but never touched. Advanced Analytics Certificate, Evening Cohort. I filled in the form without bracing for someone else's emergency. Submit. The confirmation email landed with a soft chime that felt louder than anything anyone had shouted in Salem. Work gave me a quiet promotion disguised as trust. My manager slid a project across my desk, end-to-end ownership, high visibility, no babysitting. He said I'd earned it. I believed him. My hands didn't shake when I mapped the plan. Focus felt like a room with windows I could finally open. Evenings shifted shape. Monday and Wednesday class. Saturday morning, library with a thermos and headphones. No group chat pings. No urgent lists. No, just until Friday. The silence around my phone stopped feeling like exile. It felt like oxygen. I built small rituals that didn't ask me to disappear. Tuesday, flowers from the corner stand. A plant on the sill I watered on purpose. A walk after rain when the sidewalks smelled like clean pennies. I put a sticky note inside the front cabinet, not a subscription. Every time I reached for a glass, I saw it, and it saw me back. Tessa texted once about the moving truck. She sent a screenshot of the paid invoice without commentary. I replied with a thumbs up and nothing else. It felt like learning to lift a weight with one hand instead of my whole body. Mom sent a photo of packed boxes labeled by room. Her handwriting looked steady. She added a line about church friends helping on Saturday, then a heart that meant no demands. Dad forwarded a PDF that Julia had requested, final confirmation, balances zeroed, my name nowhere. No speech. Just compliance. The house got an offer. My mother wrote that the buyer loved the light in the kitchen. I pictured the lemon cleaner sun and the thin shadow where our family photos used to hang. I wrote back, I'm happy for you, and realized I meant it. Love wasn't gone from that place. It had just stopped billing me. On a Thursday, I stood outside a clinic I'd Googled a dozen times over the years. Frosted glass. Quiet lobby. Options written in calm fonts. I didn't go in. Not yet. I stood on the sidewalk and listened to my breath and asked the only person who gets a vote now. Not the internet. Not my sister's story polls. Not the echo of my mother's ache. Me. Would I want a child someday on my timeline, with my consent, in a life that doesn't bleed me dry? The answer didn't rush. It didn't hide. It waited with me like a friend. Maybe, I said in my head, and it didn't sound like a clock. It sounded like a door I could open when I chose. That night, I changed my phone background to a photograph I took on the way home, Portland sky heavy with rain, one streetlight blurred into a halo. The old ring light moon on my parents' wall had felt like a demand. This was just light being light. Class gave me something clean to chase. I solved a case study and felt a laugh move up my throat before I heard it. The instructor wrote, elegant, in the margin of my submission. I printed that word and taped it above my desk. For years I'd been useful. Elegant felt new. Julia called once more to close the loop, final letters received, bureaus quiet, case archived. Her voice had that soft drop after a climb. She thanked me for being organized. I thanked her for being a wall when I needed one. We hung up without promising to keep in touch. That was the point. Some people enter to set fire breaks and leave when the flames learn your name. Sunday came and went without roast chicken. I texted my mother a photo of the plant on my sill with 2 new leaves and wrote, "See you next week." She replied with a picture of a cardboard box labeled Memories and a smile that looked almost like relief. Not happy. Not fixed. Just honest. I bought a new keychain even though I hadn't lost any keys. Brass, heavy, shaped like a small open circle. It fit my palm like a decision. The EMA key stayed on my parents' table, under an agent's card, in a house that was no longer my responsibility. My name lives with me now. One afternoon, my manager asked if I wanted to lead a small team for the next quarter. He said the promotion would be formal in the fall. I said yes without calculating who might need that money more. The yes tasted clean. On the walk home, Rain stitched a line down the jacket sleeve I'd bought for myself and never justified to anyone. I lifted my face and let the water erase a few leftover nerves. I opened my door to the quiet I chose and wrote 3 lines on an index card. Money is not love. Boundaries are not punishment. Care counts when it includes me. I slid it into the binder right after results. A personal policy. A new rulebook with no signatures but mine. The course sent a digital badge. I didn't post it. I placed it in a folder named Growth and closed the laptop with a satisfying click. The apartment hummed its ordinary music, fridge, neighbors, the soft traffic hush that says a city is still breathing. I brewed tea and stood by the window, the plant reaching for the gray light like hope without spectacle. Later, I walked to the river just to be near moving water. People passed with strollers, with dogs, with headphones, with laughter. I didn't feel left out. I felt placed. There was room next to them for a woman who'd learned to mother her own life first. Revenge had promised fireworks. Peace delivered furniture that fit. I went home, set tomorrow's calendar, work, class, a phone reminder to call a travel agent about a weekend at the coast. I turned off the lamp and let the room go soft. My phone lay face down. No buzzing. No alarms. No, are you sure? Pop-ups. I am.